Hi everyone, we're recording now.
I just started talking and we weren't recording, so thank goodness that Grant was on the case.
I do this a lot.
Yes, so welcome to our video. As you can see, we're both here together and we're going to be doing a soft-spoken Titanic facts video. Right after we film this video, we are going to be filming something special for Patreon. I am going to be doing Grant's makeup.
I'm gonna look pretty.
This was a request, but we actually already had it on our list of potential videos because we thought it would be fun. So if you're interested in seeing that, the link is always down below. I did recently watch Titanic, and I have a very personal relationship to that story, that, tragedy that happened, and I'll tell it to you. So, many years ago, when my great-grandmother was a little girl, they lived in Bristol, and she was one of 14 kids and, their mother and father. And they were coming over to America, or, they ended up in Canada. And they had booked passage for all of their family except for the eldest daughter on the maiden voyage of the Titanic. However, about a week before the trip, their youngest son, who ironically was called Jack, and they did have a daughter called Rose, so a Jack and a Rose could, I know,
I didn't know that part.
But their little son Jack came down with the flu, and so they weren't actually allowed to board. So they ended up coming over on another ship. But to this day, in my family, we still have 14 boarding passes, or 16 boarding passes for the maiden voyage of the Titanic. So they were on display at the 100th anniversary of the sinking in London at a museum there. But they're still in our family, which is really cool. And you could imagine that they all counted their lucky stars after they heard what had happened, because they were very poor, and there's a really good chance that they wouldn't have made it, and my great-grandmother would not have gone on to have my grandmother and my mom and me and so on and so forth. So I've always felt very close, I felt that story's always resonated with me. And let's get on with these facts. Do you guys have any cool family stories, like crazy things that have happened in your family? If you do, leave those down below.
Or even if you know any cool facts. Like if you guys have like family stories or just like Titanic family stories. But if you guys know anything about the Titanic that is missed in these facts, because we haven't gone through these, I don't know what all of these are going to have. But
let's start.
I know the coolest thing that I saw as far as like the Titanic goes was I went to the Ripley's Believe It or Not Museum in New York, and they had a styrofoam cup that was retrieved off of the actual Titanic sinking. And like, a styrofoam cup's like about that big, and this one was like that big. It was like still in the same form of a styrofoam cup, just shriveled down. It's really cool.
So I guess we'll just pass the facts back and forth.
That's quite all.
And hopefully I don't get any lipstick on my teeth.
The fact that people died on the Titanic before it ever set out. During the 26-month construction of the Titanic at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, 28 serious accidents and 218 minor accidents were recorded. 8 workers were killed. And this is actually pretty crazy. This was a smaller number than expected. 1 death for every 100,000 pounds spent was the expectation. As the Titanic cost $1.5 million to build, 15 deaths could have been anticipated. Most of the 8 were killed by injuries sustained from falling either from the ship or the staging around it. So, if you're in construction right now and there's safety codes and regulations and stuff like that, count yourself lucky, because there was a time not too long ago that you were almost expected to die.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
A 43-year-old shipwright, James Dobbin, was actually killed on the day of the Titanic's launch At 12:10 on the 31st of May 1911, an estimated 10,000 people watched as the massive ship slid from the yard onto the River Lohan. Dobbin was crushed during the process of removing the timber stays, which had been holding the ship upright.
So it really was like a cursed ship.
I guess, but I mean, from what it sounds like any ship that would have been built at this size at that time would have come with casualties no matter what.
I think, I don't remember where I read it, and I don't know if it's going to be in these facts, but I read this article about like Titanic premonitions, and apparently like 5 to 10 years before the Titanic was ever created, this author wrote a book about a ship that sank because they hit an iceberg, and the ship was called Titan.
Yeah, I'd heard about that.
Or something.
Oh, you want to take the next one?
I certainly do. So it was the largest liner in the world, as everybody knows. It was, the unsinkable, massive, big Titanic. And on her launch, the Titanic became the largest movable man-made object. She was 269 meters long and 28 meters wide. From keel to bridge, she was 32 meters high, 53 meters to the top of the stacks. Because of her grandeur, it was felt that the Titanic should have 4 exhaust stacks. Thomas Andrews' efficient original design, however, necessitated only 3. The ship therefore had 1 purely decorative stack. And Titanic's unprecedented size resulted from competition between her owners at White Star Line and Cunard Line. So,
Interesting.
yeah, at one point it was the biggest man-made movable item. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah. One of 3, because of her size and the new equipment it would require, it would have been too expensive to build the Titanic alone. Instead, she was built alongside 2 sister ships, both of which also had eventful lifetimes. Construction of the RMS Olympic began first, and the ship was launched on the 20th of September 1910. For the next 12 months, the fractionally smaller Olympic was the largest liner in the world. Less of the attention to detail applied to the aesthetic of the Titanic was used on the Olympic. After the former sank, however, improvements included lifeboats for all, and in October 1912, the installation of a watertight inner skin. The Olympic rescued soldiers from the sinking British battleship Audacious in October 1914 and served as a troop ship carrying Canadian soldiers to the European front. She was the only one of the 3 to survive more than half a decade.
Wow.
The third and biggest ship, the Britannic, went into production after the Titanic disaster and sank in 1916 after hitting a mine. She had been a British hospital ship.
Wow, I didn't know that. Around 2,200 people were on board when the Titanic sank in 1912, but her maximum capacity was around 3,500. Of these, 1,000 would be crew. In 1912, there were 908 crew members, but fewer passengers. There were 324 in first class, 284 in second, and 709 in third. Between 1,490 and 1,635 of these people died as the ship sank, including the captain. That is a lot of people.
It's interesting that they wouldn't know the exact number to be able to say, if we have a list of everyone who's supposed to be on ship, and this is how many people made it, this is how many people didn't make it.
I know on the boarding passes and stuff, it's not how they do it today. It's not like they don't put your name on it. It's ticket number 106, and that's just what you have. I mean, maybe it was different in first class, but
Interesting. Well, speaking of first class, the estimated overall wealth of the passengers in first class was $500 million.
Wow.
$87 million of this is attributed to John Jacob Astor IV.
John Jacob Astor.
I've never
He's
heard of him.
in the movie.
Oh, okay. On their voyage from New York in January 1912, Astor and his wife Madeline traveled on the Olympic. Astor was the richest passenger on the Titanic on their return journey and one of the richest people in the world. He died in the sinking as a women and children first protocol was generally followed. It is estimated that $6 million worth of belongings went down on the Titanic. Not included, however, were the supposed riches of Alfred Norney. Traveling under the false title Baron Alfred von Draxted, Norney used his assumed aristocratic status to transfer to first class. As the ship sank, he quickly gained access to a lifeboat from the first-class smoking room. Unlike the 168 men in his original second-class quarters, only 14 of whom survived the sinking.
In first class, Titanic was a place of luxury, of course. The liner had 4 restaurants, and passengers ate off the 50,000 pieces of bone china crockery supplied by Liverpool's Stonier & Co. There were reading rooms, 2 libraries, 2 barber shops, and a photographic darkroom on board. A heating swimming pool was reserved for use by first-class passengers at 1 shilling a time. There was also a Turkish baths and electric baths, each for 4 shillings a time. The Titanic had its own Atlantic Daily Bulletin printed on board, including news, society gossip, and the day's menu. This is so extreme. A first-class
I mean, as far as ships go nowadays, it's actually pretty tame.
I know, but it's like, yeah, I guess so. I went on a cruise, and there was like so many different like stores and restaurants, and there was a little central park on it, which was like a park that you go, and like rock climbing and surfing and all this stuff on the ship. It's crazy to me. What, like,
I've never even been on a cruise, and like I could only imagine.
It's a lot of fun, except ironically, when I was on that cruise ship, they were playing Titanic on the TV on one of the channels. I love that movie though, so I just, cross my fingers. A first-class passenger would pay £30 for a regular room, or £870 for a parlor suite. The majority of passengers, however, were in third class and paid between £3 and £8. There were just 2 baths for all the passengers in third class. Wow. Many of whom were bunked in the 164-bed dormitory on deck G.
Titanic was officially responsible for delivering mail for the British Postal Service. There were 5 mail clerks, a post office, and a mail room on decks F and G, along with 3,423 stacks of mail. It was reported that during the 2 hours and 40 minutes that the ship took to sink, the clerks prioritized moving sacks of mail to the upper deck.
A lifeboat drill was scheduled for the 14th of April, which is when it went down, and it was called off. This was possibly because Captain Edward Smith wished to deliver a final Sunday service for retirement. So this is actually the captain's last voyage before his retirement. And the ship sank that night. The crew had only done 1 lifeboat drill whilst the ship was docked. Even if the crew had been better trained and each lifeboat had been filled, there was only sufficient space for around a third of the ship's maximum capacity. It was believed that the ship would not sink, so there would be time to ferry passengers off it, and that's kind of why this all went south, is because they kind of had these lifeboats to, like they say, to ferry passengers to another ship that was rescuing them. They didn't think that the ship would actually ever go down. This oversight was made possible by the Merchant Shipping Act of 1894, which was not updated to accommodate ships exceeding 10,000 tons.
The wreck was discovered in the last 50 years. The Titanic wreck lies 3,700 meters below the surface of the Atlantic. It was not discovered until 1985, at which time it was confirmed the boat had split in 2. The task of finding the Titanic was included in a military operation to survey the remains of some nuclear submarines led by Robert Ballard. The separated bow and stern are around a third of a mile apart. Debris from the ship covers an area of 15 square miles. Many areas of the ship remain unexplored as they are inaccessible to underwater vehicles.
The sinking of the Titanic has inspired many films and documentaries. A requiem tracking the launch, journey, sinking, and aftermath of the Titanic was written by Robin and R.J. Gibb and performed by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. Whilst the ship itself is too fragile to be brought to the surface, innumerable smaller parts and objects have been salvaged, including a section of the hull that sits in the Luxor Hotel at the Las Vegas Strip. That's really interesting. Cool. I didn't know that. Do you want to find facts about the movie now?
Sure. We're going to be moving on to Titanic movie facts now.
All you movie buffs.
We've pulled up 31 facts that every superfan should know. Number 1. During production, the movie was called Planet Ice. Director James Cameron used a decoy title in case other studios were making films about the RMS Titanic. Clever? Yes, but the fake title didn't stop Leonardo DiCaprio fans from congregating near the gates of Fox Baja Studios in Mexico during filming.
Planet Ice, what is this, BBC? Before DiCaprio, there was strong consideration for Cruise, Pitt, and even Sisto. As in Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, and Jeremy Sisto of Clueless fame. Jeremy even did a screen test with Kate Winslet, but obviously did not get the best test results. Can you imagine anyone else wearing this borrowed suit to dinner in the first class? I can't imagine. I cannot. I love Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet.
I don't know why this wouldn't just go into the last fact, but Matthew McConaughey also auditioned for Jack. Isn't that weird? Winslet said in 2017 on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. Never said that in public before, and just because of that, you get your own slide, McConaughey. Oh, okay, well, sure, I guess.
Madonna was considered for the role of Rose. It would have been a great follow-up to 1996 Evita, which earned Madonna a Golden Globe for Best Actress. Also in the running, Nicole Kidman, Jodie Foster, Cameron Diaz, Sharon Stone, and Gwyneth Paltrow. Like Cameron Diaz as Rose, and then Kate Winslet as Fiona.
Yeah, oh my god. But thanks to 19-year-old Winslet's persistence, she was the only one who ended up with a winning ticket. I closed the script, wept floods of tears, and said, right, I've absolutely got to be a part of this. No two ways about it, she told Rolling Stone in 1998. A few calls later, she was on the phone with Cameron, who was in his car, and I think he pulled over, and I said, I just have to do this, and you are really mad if you don't cast me. Remember car phones? That's what it says in the fact. That wasn't like me being like...
Do you remember car phones?
Good small talk.
To further prove she was the only person for the job, Winslet sent Cameron a small gift. It was a rose for Rose. According to Cameron, in a behind-the-scenes special, Winslet also wrote a note that basically said, I'm ready.
You can thank Winslet for convincing her future BFF to say yes to Jack Dawson. In the same 1998 Rolling Stone interview, Winslet revealed that she slipped out of a press junket to have a talk with him during a film festival. In 2016, DiCaprio shed some light on that conversation, telling Deadline, we'd done all these independent movies. I loved her as an actress, and she said, let's do this together. We can do this. We did it, and it became something that we could have never foreseen.
Winslet flashed DiCaprio on one of their very first days of filming. It wasn't intentional per se. I was having my makeup put on with nothing on, and there was Leo. Winslet told People in 1998, he saw me and went, whoa, and I said, we're going to spend the whole day like this, we may as well get it over now. That broke the ice. That's funny.
DiCaprio was like a cat on set. That's according to Cameron, who said DiCaprio always made this big drama about getting wet. Eventually he warmed up, quite literally, thanks to the crew members who poured buckets of warm water over the actor over months of filming. On the last day of filming, which took place underwater, Cameron lost sight of DiCaprio the cat. I'm down there in my scuba equipment, and Leo comes down, and he's a total fish underwater, and he's even doing somersaults.
DiCaprio would fart in his jacket on set and sweep it over Winslet's face. Oh my god, what a romantic. I mean, if anybody else in the world did that, they'd get slapped, and the other person would walk away and not talk to them for a week, Cameron told Rolling Stone in 1998. With Leo, Kate would just crack up, added Billy Zane in the same interview. Grossing Kate out was purely Leo's job. He was really good at it.
Winslet and Dicaprio engaged in a lot of sex talks in between takes. As the Rolling Stone profile revealed, the two would snuggle under a blanket in his trailer for these conversations. You know, some very, very personal things, asking each other for advice. Not necessarily comparing notes, but sort of, no, don't do it like that, do it like this. He's very good at that. I have to say, a lot of the sexual tips he's given me have worked, and I know it's vice versa.
Lindsay Lohan auditioned for Cora, aka Jack's best friend. She was like one of the little girls. Lohan, 8 at the time, lost the role to Alexandra Owens after Cameron expressed concern over Lohan's red hair being too similar to Rose and Ruth's fiery locks. The Parent Trap was released the following year.
Gloria Stewart was the only Titanic cast member who was alive during Titanic's maiden voyage in 1912. Stewart was almost 2 when the RMS Titanic perished in the Atlantic in 1998. She also became the oldest Academy Award nominee at 87 when she was up for Best Supporting Actress. Unfortunately, she lost to Kim Basinger, who won for LA Confidential.
It cost more to make Titanic the movie than Titanic the ship. What? I mean, I'm not surprised.
That makes sense. It was only $1.5 million for the
I'm
ship.
in the production industry. I know how expensive it is. Cameron and Company spent $200 million to make the film in 1997. Not surprised. While the ship cost $7.5 million. As Time pointed out in 2016, that number would be $180 million after adjusted inflation. So still, the movie was more.
Rose stared at an incorrect star field in the film's original release. Towards the end of the movie, a near-frozen Rose sees a sparkling night sky as Jack makes his way to the frozen afterlife. Unfortunately, that's not what a real Titanic survivor would have seen given the coordinates in the water. According to the astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, ahead of the film's 15-year release in 2012, Cameron adjusted it and revealed that Tyson sent him a snarky email pointing out the error. And with my reputation as a perfectionist, I should have known that, and I should have put the right star field in, said Cameron. So I said, all right, send me the right stars for the exact time, and I'll put it in the movie.
Those are not Dicaprio's hands drawing Rose. We all know that. Hello.
I didn't know that.
As hardcore Titanic fans know, Cameron was the skilled artist behind Jack's drawing of Rose wearing nothing but the heart of the ocean. In 2011, the drawing sold for at least $16,000 at an auction, according to ABC News. I'm surprised that that's all that sold for, though.
Yeah, very, very fair. DiCaprio was often spotted with his pet lizard on set.
Oh my gosh.
His name, Blizzard. No joke, imagine being a lizard in 1996, 1997 and belonging to future Oscar winner and eternal hottie Leonardo DiCaprio, though...
Near the end of the shoot, about 50 members of the cast and crew were sent to hospital after eating spiked chowder. It happened just after midnight on August 9th, 1996 in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia, I love Nova Scotia. And according to Halifax Regional Police, someone had laced the lobster chowder with PCP or angel dust. Among those affected, Bill Paxton, who told EW, "One minute I felt okay, the next I felt so anxious I wanted to breathe in a paper bag." Cameron was feeling the same way. As one doctor put it, these people were stoned. The case inspired several conspiracy theories, including one involving an angry chef that had been let go. That's crazy.
Yeah.
No matter how angry you are, that's like an insane thing to do. Oh my goodness.
While she was spared from the great Titanic chowder episode, Winslet got hypothermia, not the long-rumored pneumonia. It was really cold, she told Stephen Colbert on The Late Show in November 2017 of the final scene with Jack in the water. There were lots of big tanks, there was lots of water. That amount of water, I think, honestly, they couldn't heat it. There was just too much of it.
Speaking of the water tanks, you bet Winslet and DiCaprio peed in them. You know, when you gotta go, Winslet said on the Rosie O'Donnell show while promoting the film. It was so awful because Leo would sometimes say to me, "Sweetie, I gotta pee." It was terrible, it was awful, and you always felt awful doing it. It took too long getting out, and the wet clothes, I confess, it happened. That's funny.
Dicaprio wasn't always thrilled to be aboard the fake RMS Titanic. According to Vanity Fair, at one point during production, Dicaprio leaned over Kathy Bates and asked, "Which one of these do I use to lobotomize myself?" while gesturing at the White Star Line cutlery. Oh, I guess he didn't enjoy himself on set.
Fans were often told DiCaprio's body double was really him, causing a wave of screams and general Leo mania excitement. According to Brett Baker, who was shorter than DiCaprio and 7 years older than the actor, security guards would inform fans outside the gate that it was really Leo in the car. They went berserk, Baker told Vanity Fair, screaming, looking inside the window, waving their pieces of paper for an autograph. The guards just thought it was so funny. I don't know if anyone knew that was going on at the gate every morning.
DiCaprio ad-libbed during the "Draw Me Like One of Your French Girls" scene. His line was supposed to be "lie on that couch," but instead DiCaprio mumbled, "lie on that bed." Couch. Spontaneity never looked hotter.
Rose was supposed to jab Cal with a hairpin. Instead, Winslet decided spitting in her fiancé's face would make for a better moment. According to Cameron, she was right. Yes, she was.
Old Rose's Pomeranian is in the film on purpose. It was Cameron's way of paying tribute to the 3 canine survivors of the RMS Titanic. 2 Pomeranians and 1 Pekingese made it out of the sinking ship.
Wow.
Cameron also filmed scenes portraying other animals who perished in the disaster but eventually left them on the cutting floor.
While they didn't have any speaking lines, the sweet old couple shown in bed during the ship's sinking were super important. They're Ida and Isidore Strauss, owners of Macy's department store in NYC. When the real Ida was led to a lifeboat, she refused, reportedly saying, "We have lived together for many years. Where you go, I go." An early cut of Titanic featured this scene, but was later edited out.
The door Rose floats on is real. The door in Titanic is a larger version of a wooden panel that had split in 2 following the disaster. In 2018, the artifact will make its way from the Maritime Museum in Halifax, where it's been kept for decades, to the UK's Victoria and Albert Museum for an exhibition called Ocean Liners, Speed and Style, which vows to celebrate the golden age of ocean travel.
That's interesting. Titanic is the second film about the RMS Titanic to win a Best Picture Oscar. I actually just recently learned this. In 1933, Frank Lloyd's Cavalcade took home the same prize along the Oscars for Best Director and Best Art Direction. 1997's Titanic won a whopping 11 Oscars, including Best Original Song. Near, far, wherever.
The Oscar nominations for Old Rose and Young Rose made history. Titanic was the first film to have 2 cast members, Winslet and Stewart, nominated for playing the same role. Sadly, both lost in their respective categories at the 1998 ceremony. But how about those 11 golden statues?
Cameron originally scored the film with a lot of Enya. Unfortunately, Enya turned down the official offer to score the final version of the film, leading Cameron to go with composer extraordinaire James Horner.
The demo for My Heart Will Go On was recorded in secret. Apparently, Cameron only wanted instrumental music on the soundtrack. Of the recording with Celine Dion, Horner told Billboard, "She started singing the song and it was just electrifying. By the end of it, we were all emotionally shook up. She started crying while singing it 2/3 of the way through the song, and then everybody in the room was crying. She was singing it like her life depended on it. It took him another month and a half to fully convince Cameron that the song belonged in the film, and the rest, as they say, is key change history."
Okay, so those are all the facts that we've got for you today. Titanic facts. We got movie, we got real world, we got a personal story. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys in the next video. So hopefully sleep is granted and sweet dreams.